Welcome to segment 5 of Gal Einai Va'abiton Neflois M'Teirasecha, a Hasidic discourse delivered by the Lubavitcher Rebbe in 1977 that addresses the theme and the meaning and the message of Lag BaOmer. The Maimer opened up with a discussion of the pasuk Gal Einai Va'abiton Neflois M'Teirasecha. David HaMelech is requesting of Hashem that he peel away the layers of concealment over his eyes. And the question that was posed at the beginning of the Maimer was, why is the emphasis on peeling away the concealment from his eyes when the request should have really been that the teachings itself should be brought down and translated into terms that he could understand? So the Rebbe went on to explain that the Lag BaOmer is the Matan Torah of Pnimiyus Ha-Torah. It's the time when the inner dimensions of the Torah were given, and continuously are given every year, over and over again. And if we want to understand the theme of Matan Torah, if we want to understand the meaning of Matan Torah and the dynamics of Matan Torah, it's necessary for us to go back to the original Matan Torah and understand how the process worked in terms of the objective, in terms of the purpose and the goal of Matan Torah. So the Rebbe explained, based on the Medrash, which is brought down in many Sichos and Maimarim, that earlier at one point there was the Medrash brings down a mashal. It's a metaphor, draws a metaphor from a king who had two different countries under his reign, and he decreed that those who exist, those who live, those who dwell in the higher country, in the upper country, in the one that was divided by upper and lower, those who were in the lower were not to ascend to the higher. Those who were in the higher country were not to descend to the lower country. And the names that the Medrash uses is Syria and Rome. Rome won't go down to Syria. Syria won't go up to Rome. And when Matan Torah came, it was like the king who originally had this divide, but then broke the divide. And how did Hashem break the divide? Earlier, the heavens were only for God. Earth was for humankind. What Hashem did was He penetrated from the heavens into the earth and allowed for holiness to then become part and parcel and embedded and absorbed within the physical, within the material world. And then, as the result, He empowered those who are below, meaning He empowered humanity to be able to elevate and refine themselves such that they can actually climb higher and become holier and become more spiritual, less egocentric, less self-focused and self-oriented, and as a result be a vessel for the divine. And so there are these two different dynamics that are going on. There is the descent from above to below. In other words, Hashem transmitting His light and His wisdom and His Torah to us below, which was essentially the theme of Matan Torah. And then Hashem also empowered us at that very moment to be able to ascend from below and become more spiritual and more uplifted and experience this kind of ascent. So the Rebbe explained that these two dynamics are at play in the difference between Torah and mitzvahs. Torah is Hashem is transmitting His wisdom to us, His light to us. Mitzvahs, those commandments that Hashem asked us to perform in actual deed, this is the strain, this is the dimension of our relationship where we have to refine and we have to uplift our own existence so that we become more of a vessel for the divine rather than Hashem imposing it upon us. So having explained that, the Rebbe also now returns to answer another question that he asked earlier. He asked the question why the Tzemach Tzedek, in his commentary on the Tillim, explains on the pasuk Gal Einai Va'abiton Neflois M'Teirasecha that it's a reference not just to the inner dimensions and the secrets and the mysticism of Torah, but rather it's a reference to understanding. David HaMelech is requesting an understanding of the inner intent of the mitzvahs, the kavanos ha-mitzvahs. And so in order to understand why the Tzemach Tzedek injects that explanation in his interpretation, in his commentary, the Rebbe now explains that the whole focus and ultimate purpose really of the giving of the Torah in general, and certainly the giving of the inner dimensions of Torah, is for a person to be able to use those teachings in an internal way and be able to elevate himself or herself to such a level where the divine becomes something that they actually identify with. And so now the Rebbe explains here on page 139. The link for this Maimer is in the video. And so I welcome everybody to join us over here on page 139, the second paragraph on the page. Based on the explanation above, that the fundamental intent in the nullification of the decree separating the higher realms and the lower realms that was brought about by the giving of the Torah, was that those below ascend on high. It follows that similar concepts apply with regard to the nullification of the decree and the barrier separating the higher realms and the lower realms that existed regarding Pnimiyus Ha-Torah. Which is reflected in the request, open my eyes and I will gaze at wonders from your Torah. What is the fundamental focus? What is the fundamental importance? Is the ascent. What is the fundamental importance is the ascent from below, that man, as he exists in his own frame of reference, identify with Pnimiyus Ha-Torah. So now, so accordingly, so if we're explaining that the primary focus of the Matan Torah, of the giving of the Torah, of Pnimiyus Ha-Torah, of the inner dimension of the Torah, is that the that those in the lower realms should ascend and refine themselves and solidify and create a concrete frame of reference from which they can appreciate the divine. It's all through their work. So now we can appreciate the fact that the Tzemach Tzedek injects this explanation that it's a reference to that this whole request is a reference to understanding the mitzvahs. Why? Because, so he explains on the next page. Let me just read this English translation of this last paragraph. Accordingly, it is necessary to say that the new development alluded to by I will gaze at wonders from your Torah must include mitzvahs, which, as explained above, reflects the dimension of giving of the Torah that relates to man, as they are reflected in the soul of the Torah. In other words, what he means to say is that if we're talking about the giving of the inner dimension of the Torah, and the inner dimensions and the purpose and the ultimate focus of the inner dimensions of the Torah is the ascent of man, the purification, the refinement of the human, so that he becomes or she becomes more of a receptacle for the divine, and it's something that they achieve on their own through their own service of Hashem. Now we could understand why the Tzemach Tzedek refers and injects in his commentary that the request over here of Hashem on Lag BaOmer, on Gal Einai V'Abita, is a request for understanding the intent of the mitzvahs, because mitzvahs represent our service, as opposed to the Torah, which represents God's transmission. So maybe at Tzemach Tzedek Pirush HaShalom, page 140, therefore the Tzemach Tzedek cites the interpretation of Shalom, which explains that the wonders from your Torah refer to the intentions that motivate the mitzvahs. On this basis, the Rebbe resolves the question raised in section 3. There it was asked, why in the midst of the explanation that Pnimiyus Ha-Torah reveals the soul and the soul of the Torah, the Tzemach Tzedek cite the interpretation of the Shalom that the wonders from your Torah refer to the intentions that motivate the mitzvahs. Explaining that the request, open my eyes, quote, places the emphasis on not merely revealing the Torah's mystic secrets from above, but that they affect man's eyes, is his way of perceiving and understanding reality, enables us to understand why there must be a connection to mitzvahs. For mitzvahs reflect how those below ascend on high, meaning how man rises to a level beyond his own reach. So to explain this concept, how the intentions that motivate the mitzvahs relates to the soul and the soul of the soul of the Torah. So the Rebbe explains the observance of mitzvahs in a desirable manner comes about through the study of the Torah, as our sages commented. The Talmud, maybe Lidei Maisa, study leads to action. Now every mitzvah has a body, the actual deed of the mitzvah, and a soul, its spiritual intent. The observance of the mitzvahs is in a desirable manner, obviously involves both of these dimensions, a precise observance of actions required by the mitzvah, and a thoughtful and heartfelt appreciation of the intent. So in other words, the idea of a mitzvah is that it has a neshama and it has a guf, it has a body and it has a soul. What's the body of the mitzvah? The body of the mitzvah is the performance of the mitzvah. The soul of the mitzvah is the intent, the focus, the mental understanding, and the conceptualization of the mitzvah when a person performs the mitzvah. This is the body and the soul of the mitzvah. And when the Tzemach Tzedek introduces to us the interpretation of the Shalom, that the request of David HaMelech was that he appreciate, he come to understand the inner intention of the mitzvahs. What he means to say is that is critical for the person to be able to serve Hashem properly, as he's going to explain. It is possible to explain that the possibility for the deed of the mitzvah, the body of the mitzvah, to be performed in the desired manner, comes about through the study of the revealed Torah and the body, which is the body of the Torah, and the possibility for the intentions that motivate the mitzvahs, the soul of the mitzvahs, to be as desired. It comes about through the study of Pnimiyus Ha-Torah, the soul of the Torah. So in other words, what he's trying to tell us here, the Rebbe is explaining that in order for the action to be proper, it's necessary for a person to be proficient in halacha. You open a Shulchan Aruch and you study the halacha. You understand how to perform the mitzvah. But in order for the mitzvah to be a healthy mitzvah, to be a full mitzvah, to be a complete mitzvah, it needs proper kavanah, it needs proper intention. And the way a person is able to achieve and attain proper and focus and proper mental focus, and attention and understanding and conceptualization of the mitzvah, it's specifically through studying the neshama of the Torah, not just the guf of the Torah, but the neshama of the Torah, the soul of the Torah, which is Pnimiyus Ha-Torah, which is what Chassidus is all about. On this basis, the statement of Shalom can be understood. For the study of Pnimiyus Ha-Torah enhances one's intent in the observance of the mitzvahs, which reflect the motif of those below ascend on high. In other words, it all runs in one direction. When the Tzemach Tzedek explains that David HaMelech was asking of Hashem, emphasizing that Hashem peel off the layers of concealment from his own eyes, rather than asking of Hashem that he reveal the great wonders from above, as though it was something that Hashem is doing on his own initiative without the person taking initiative. The emphasis there is clearly on the person's work. That God Einai, that let my eyes be unpeeled. Let me succeed in my service of Hashem, whereby my eyes become unpeeled. That's the first step. And then the Rebbe explains that for this reason, the Tzemach Tzedek introduces us to this idea that the request of David HaMelech with Gal Einai is not just to be able to serve Hashem through his own toil, but that his understanding of mitzvahs, which is the service that we perform from below. In other words, we toil with the mitzvahs. Mitzvahs, as we explained earlier, has a whole different dynamic than Torah. Torah is Hashem transmitting. Torah is Hashem. Mitzvahs are us doing the service, meaning engaging in the toil and in the elevation, the refinement on our own. So all of these explanations point in one direction. That the request was that we succeed in our service from below. We succeed in making this something that we truly identify with. We personally are in touch with it. We understand, we appreciate it. It's something that we are able to succeed in. That was the request. Gal Einai v'habito. And that's why it all runs in the same direction, because the idea of mitzvahs is our service from below. We will stop here and continue with the next segment in section 6.